Far in the horizon lies unreachable goals. Welcome to the Abyss Garden, a secluded land where we create endless pathways, unique cards made to inspire your stories. And so, today's video is a bit of a recap of these first tiny tales, of this first week of creating a character and following it for 6 days for 6 doodles, 6 illustrations, every time using a random pathway from our collection. And so I'm first gonna go through roughly what happened for this character. So we initially came to the idea of some kind of ruins, some kind of slabs of rocks and artifacts that kind of came together around an important item and that took a new life, that basically turned into a creature. And so we came up with this idea of the Rubble's child, who was born from these old slumbering artifacts. And so at the very beginning we had this scene with the seedling advisor, and along the following illustrations we end up having the seedling's advisor showing it an omen of incoming dangers, of a character that might want to reach out to the Rubble's child and tear him apart in order to gather its essence, in order to gather this tiny scale that is hidden within it. And so after this realization, they both start to flee away towards the horizon, towards the high skies. And so we see the Rubble's child roots kind of being torn apart as some kind of symbol of it flying away from its home. After that we had a tiny event where a malevolent being in the sky, a malevolent cloud, ended up tearing apart their companionship, their relationship, and it left us with the Rubble's child falling to the ground, where it met another creature that we've seen in the past in the garden. And this creature ended up being quite inquisitive and making the Rubble's child feel kind of threatened. And the last scene where we saw it, this new character that we created was building itself a shelter to hide itself. So I feel like overall it went okay in the story realm. As far as the doodles go, as far as the illustrations go, I feel like there were definitely ups and downs. Like the original design of the character, I like the original idea, but I'm still a bit struggling to make these slabs of rock feel really rocky, to make them feel really like stone. On the other hand, I'm also still quite struggling with depth. So with the first doodle we did have a trial of some depth happening, but it seems like I rapidly went away from that. I think it's just because I didn't initially thought of that when creating the idea, the thumbnails for these scenes. Something that I realized also is that with these characters that have a lot of different parts, like this Rubble's child, that has a lot of different rocks, when I kind of put the scene in more of a faraway position, meaning when I depict this character as a smaller version of itself, I have a kind of a bad tendency to try to still recreate the tiny details that we see when the character is big. And so we end up with something that turns quite black and messy, which is something that I really gotta learn. To be able to reduce the amount of details in the characters when they're far away, where we see way less of themselves. And so I feel like in the future when I create a character, a new being in the Abyss Garden, I really have to try to see how it looks from close up and from very far away, to still have the ability for it to be recognized, but not to overload it with unnecessary details that become ultimately invisible when it becomes too tiny. But otherwise I feel like I'm kind of happy with this format, with this idea of having these 6 different doodles and these 6 different scenes. I also feel like using one pathway every time to inspire the drawing kind of felt really nice compared to the 3 pathways that I used to draw for each doodle in the past. And just the fact of following one character for at least 5 or 6 doodles, it somehow makes me feel more involved in this tiny story. And so yeah, I think that overall I quite enjoy this process. I would be really curious to know what you think about it, if you watched some of the videos or some of the doodles, if it maybe inspired you to do something similar or to create your own tiny story. Because in the end, each doodle, it took me around an hour. I'm not the most efficient doodler, and I clearly don't have the most impressive style, but I'm working on it. I think that's kind of it for the recap. I hope you're having a nice day, and I'll see you soon for new pathways.